Morning, good morning. Welcome. Oh, I am so honored that you showed up today. Really, it's so wonderful to know that, you know, this community is providing something that people want to bring into their hearts and minds. So I want to say namaste, thank you for being here. Give yourselves a hand. Yay. So I'd like to start with, my name is Reverend Tamara, and I speak once a month here. The big dude's gone today, so you got me. One of the things that has been going on for me is that I was listening to the idea of intention a lot lately. So I'm going to invite you, after we do 3 breaths, just sit there and close your eyes for just a moment and see if you can find an intention of what you want to get out of being here today, whether it's being sung to, prayed by, or for, or listening to the message. Are you willing to do that maybe? Yeah? Okay. So let us start with a big breath, and we'll do 3 of those together. Ready? Inhale, hold, exhale. Inhale, hold, exhale. Inhale, hold, and exhale. So in a world of possibility, set an intention for the day for yourself, for this moment. Joy, peace, comfort, compassion. And let us begin. And please come back into the room when you're ready. Thank you. So today's talk is called Renewable Resources. And these topics are given to us by the Home Office in Colorado. And I'm going to begin talking about the world and some possibilities. And then I'm going to come back and talk about our personal journeys. So right now, I want to talk about what Reverend Michael Bernard was talking about last week, and that is this. When we speak of the world, we tend to speak of the world as the earth, and that is not correct. The earth is an alive entity. Oh boy, and there's the earth right there in form. Hi. Nothing like the joy of innocence and curiosity. So the world is different than the earth. The earth is a living, breathing entity which this particular body and all the bodies out here are of. When we drink the water, it becomes us. When we eat the food from the earth, it becomes our blood. In our whole system, it becomes our body. The world is a construct of beliefs, of worldviews, of attitudes. And when a spiritual teacher, mystical teacher like Jesus said, we are in the world but not of it, doesn't mean the earth. It means our constructs of our belief systems. And if you've ever heard me speak before, you know that this is very limited compared to this. Our heart and our intuition and our instinct is what moves us and propels us into a spiritual reality. This gets us again and again and again in a lot of trouble. Because for every one of these things we call mind, there is an opinion. And there's now going to be 8 billion people projected by next month on the planet called Earth. So in the world that we construct in here, that's 8 billion worlds that have their own opinions. That's a lot of peeps out there with a lot of different ideas. So I heard something a few months ago, and it captivated me, and I'm hoping that I can deliver it with ease. And it's this. We have the new, yay, that's right. We have the new Webb telescope, right? And this telescope, we now can see over another 13.5 billion galaxies. Now, with all this, we talk about space and time and space. And our scientists are now finding that it's not the only world in which we live, this time and space, correct? That we know we can shoot ourselves into the space and defy, not break the laws, but defy the laws of gravity to enter into a different place in the galaxy. We used to think, wow, that's science fiction. In my father's day, he was born in 1916, that was, something of science fiction. I remember when man landed on the moon, my father, I was 10 or so. Was I that? Yeah. And my father had bet his older brothers that we would go to the moon back in the 20s and 30s, and they laughed at him. So he bet them $20. Now, $20 in the 60s was like over 100. So my dad got on that dial phone, called him up, and got his money as we were landing on the moon. But here's the thing. Einstein said that time and space is a construct of our thinking, okay? And that it doesn't include how we live. In other words, it's not a part of the reality of who we are. Einstein said that, and that's kind of mind-blowing, because we live in this construct called time and space. It's almost 11 o'clock, okay, on this side of the world. But what it means is he was exploring different ways. Light years, we talk about light years. How many people? I can't conceive infinity nor a light year. It's pretty hard. Yeah. But with all of this, here's the good news. We now have become so advanced with artificial intelligence that in China, they have figured out how to construct deep learning for the artificial intelligence, for the AI. And deep learning is that there was this game called Go. In America, we don't know much about that game. Oh, you do?
I play it.
Okay. Hey, Sky plays it. So the Go game, the computer, after playing 100 times, it has infinite possibilities, the Go game. I had to preface that. And the artificial intelligence, after playing 100 games with another human, the best in the world, it started going so fast with its programming that it created a win by something that no mind so far has been able to figure out. The possibilities were beyond our capacity at this moment in time to understand. And what they learned is that this is going to be something that can get us further with not only technology, but just the advancements of our intelligence. So there are ramifications for that, for sure. And then there's really interesting positivity. For instance, why Einstein said, we cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So that means that some of the problems, global warming, overpopulation, trying to get along with one another that don't have the same ideologies in the world, what causes war, the different belief systems in religion. And the artificial intelligence may be a possibility to find answers that we are not in our consciousness advanced enough to recognize. Not that we don't have it, because we do, but that we can't recognize it in our limited space and time. So there's these physicists, and there's this one gentleman, if you want to look him up, his name's Donald Hoffman, and he's a cognitive scientist and a physicist, and he's on the podcast system on YouTube. And he and the younger physicists have started to study the fact that within 80 to 100 years, 8 to 10 decades, they will be able to construct time travel within just our bodies. Now that sounds like something from Star Trek, you know, where's Captain Kirk, right? But the possibilities are there because they were talking about how these computers can do these mathematical theorems with quantum physics and Newtonian physics, and it becomes billions and billions of problems, the more in reductionism, to look at the smaller and smaller particles of Earth, quarks, and I think they're called gluons and things like that. And what's happening is they decided to do something different and take the container of this particular time and space with gravity and Earth and put it into a different theorem of light years, of a different time and space theorem. And all these mathematical problems came down to 5, then 3, then 1. And they're discovering that we will be able to go around the construct of space and time in maybe 100 years, and people will laugh at where we are today, just like 100 years ago. Anyway, the possibilities make me excited, and the responsibility makes me somewhat a little nervous. But how exciting is that? That artificial intelligence is something that we have now created. I mean, when I pick up my phone, I don't think, wow, how does that work? I just dial or play a game or get on whatever I get on. But when we think about it, if we had to understand everything about how light waves work, television waves, radio waves, we would be pretty overwhelmed, right? So I'm excited about that. And I wanted to share that with you because I think that that's a great possibility with all the problems that we're looking at and trying to navigate today. So that's the part of this. Then I'm going to get into our personal part. This is where each of us have to participate as we choose, but it's a deep one. I'm going to share something I talked about 3 years ago. And that was the Holocaust in Rwanda. How many people remember that? Did anyone ever read the book, Left to Tell? It's amazing. This woman, her name is Immaculée Ibazal, and she was from Rwanda, and she was from a family that was from the Tutsi tribe. And the Tutsi tribe in Rwanda, it's a beautiful garden, country in Africa. And they had 3 tribes, the Tutsis, the Hutus, and the Wiots. The Wiots were an indigenous pygmy tribe, and they were not very many people left. And the Hutus usually were the blue class workers, and the Tutsis were what I would call white, collar people. They were the educators, the principals, the engineers, things like that. Anyway, in the 1990s, Clinton was president at that time. A similar thing happened in their country that's going on in our country, and that's this. There was some people in power that decided that everybody had to take sides. And, when that happens, it's like someone draws a line in the sand and said, you're either for me on my side or you're against me. And that is a construct that is not in a reality that I want to live. Right. There is no way. There's only your way or my way or the highway. Yeah. That just doesn't work, right? There has to be conversations. There has to be possibilities of thinking and being in this world. That's what freedom's all about, right? So this very extremist group was saying they had to start being tribal. You had to identify your tribe in school. And Immaculée didn't even know what she was, actually. She didn't know what tribe she belonged to. Her parents, her dad was a principal, her mom was a teacher, and they lived, with neighbors who were Hutus next door. They grew up with kids who, weren't of their same tribe. People married each other, had kids, et cetera, et cetera. But then this extremist started saying that I think it was Belgium, wanted to construct those who have and those who have not. And they decided one tribe would be educated and one tribe would not, way back in the 20s and 30s. So it started causing a division. As time went on, this particular extremist political view, and whenever I say extreme, there's extreme on the left and there's extreme on the right. It's not about which one's which. It's about whenever you get off center, whenever you become imbalanced, whatever side becomes imbalanced. That's why we have checks and balances, right, in our government. So anyway, in Rwanda, what happened was the Hutus were getting very upset. They felt victimized. Remember that triangle of this particular life is victim, villain, and hero. In all our dramas and all our stories, we have a victim, we have a villain, and we have a hero, correct? And unfortunately, that puts us in positions of polarization. Whenever we also have to have a villain, and then we also have to have a hero who's going to save the victim, because the villain needs a victim, or he's not a villain, or she's not a villain. So what has happened in this construct in Rwanda is they finally have a Hutu president, and they're excited because they feel that they have been ignored and didn't have a voice. So the politics were calming down and people weren't as divisive. And then on Easter Sunday in '91, a plane crash happened, and the president, who was a Hutu, who was just, I don't think he'd been in power for very long, died. And this militant group for the Hutus started rhetoric on the radio and saying you must pick up arms and you must kill the Tutsis because they're trying to kill you. They're trying to take over you. They're trying to take your stuff. They're trying to take your family, blah, blah, blah. Which wasn't true. And so the rhetoric and the fear got to a level where all of a sudden these people were convinced that their neighbors were cockroaches, that they weren't human, that they were evil. We've seen that in the Holocaust with Hitler. In 100 days, the neighbors, the husbands, the wives, the children, all had to take sides. And in 100 days, 1 million Tutsis were slaughtered and killed in 1991. That's a lot of people. That's just like you and I. The Catholics, or if you're Jewish, whatever the thing is, Republican, Democrat. 1 million people in 100 days. People who were just going to work, living their lives with their family. Out of rhetoric, out of a belief system, and a belief system is just a bunch of cells put together. That is not truth. There's too many belief systems. And there's way too much mystery in this world to say that you know. But what you do know is here. You do know that eternal reality, that love really does overcome, that deep love. Not the romantic love that gets caught in the ego, but the deep agape love of life itself. And these people, this particular young woman, Immaculée, her brother was home from college, she was home from college, and people started scattering, and she saw her father, who helped a lot of people in the community. He was a principal. They just ran him over with a truck, and then she saw her mother get macheted in the street. Now, there wasn't violence like this before, so it would be like us waking up and having that experience in our neighborhood, in our homes. And this minister that her father was very close to, who was a Hutu, a Methodist minister, took several Tutsi women into his home and hid them in a bathroom that had an added bathroom that had a fake wall. And they lived there for 100 days, 5 women in a very small bathroom. And during that time, she would hear them come inches from the window of the bathroom, calling their names, telling them they're cockroaches and they wanted to kill them. At first, there was so much anger in her and so much rage and so much grief. And then she had to sit there with nothing to do for 100 days except ruminate about the evil that was taking place or do something different. And what she did is she started to pray. And she started to pray at a level she never thought she could. And in these prayers that she did it 10 hours a day. And she said after the first 30 days, she moved into a place she had never experienced before, kind of like a meditation of ecstasy, like she could really feel something greater moving within her. She was able to find compassion and forgiveness from the people who had slaughtered her family. There's one instance where they, for some reason, had to leave the bathroom, and she was faced with a Hutu who had a machete, and she stood there and prayed, and he walked right up to her and froze, and then turned away and walked away. There was something going on within her that she connected with that was bigger than the ideology of hate. That's powerful. And when it was all done, her house was burned to the ground. They got help, and people were thrown in jail for war crimes. Her neighbor in particular, who had killed her mother and her father and her brother. And she went to, just like Nelson Mandela, she went to the jail and forgave him. That wasn't just words. That was work. As a spiritual warrior, that was work. And she had no money, no food. Everything was collapsed around her. And as she was going to the camps that were taking all the refugees in, when she got to a different city and had no money, no nothing, this young disabled woman who her mother had helped said, "Your mother took me in and helped me," and she was a Hutu. So she took her in and gave her shelter. Just like the minister who, the father had done really good things for this minister, and he took her in. You see, that's true karma there. What our parents have laid before their good works, our good works of service go on before us and behind us. That's amazing. The impact that every one of us here has for someone we don't even know, because they may not even be born yet. But what we stand for, what we stand up for, if we say a world that works for everyone, we have to mean that. And how do we do that? And she was trapped in a bathroom for 100 days just with her thoughts, just with her own consciousness, just with her own heart and mind. And she came out on the other side with forgiveness and compassion. Then all these synchronicities happened. And that's what happens in this philosophy when we give an intention. We start to be able to, it's not even attract, but experience our intentions of being kind, our intentions of being a good person, our intentions of being of service. Those things manifest and continue to even outlive our physical life. So she walks out and she's volunteering somewhere in a food bank, and somebody starts listening to her, how she was so forgiving and her presence was so large and beautiful. And they worked at the United Nations, and they offered her a part-time job there. And she started working for the United Nations, and then she met her husband, and he got sent to the United States, and she came here, and she lives in New York with her husband, and they have children. And she wrote this book with the assistance of Wayne Dyer, who really saw the magic in her of being able to overcome the hatred and the fear and her own ideologies to rise above that. Thich Nhat Hanh says that we must end the war within ourselves, and also to have compassion with ourselves. And I always hear all the time where we talk about just love yourself. That's all you got to do is love yourself. And sometimes I think, well, there's things I know I should do better. And then I think this and that, and I go, I just shit on myself, right? But I had a deep encounter where one of my foster kids and I got into a really dark place of arguing a lot, and it was difficult. They were having some mental health, anxiety issues. And afterwards, the week after, I just felt terrible. Coulda, woulda, shoulda on me all the whole week, and I could just feel it on my skin. I could have, I shoulda, I know better, all those things. And I thought that self-reflection would make me a better person. But I'm wrong. I was wrong. The compassion for myself had to be the first place I go so that I could have a broader band to have compassion for other people. And I know maybe some of you said, really, you didn't know that? But I was like, wow. And once I forgave myself, I had so much more room to stop ruminating and to forgive the situation. So much more compassion. Through my suffering, I found I had more room to be compassionate with other people that I saw that were suffering. And I didn't have to judge so harshly. When I find people who are really judgmental now, I can see glimpses of how hard they are on themselves. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, invite you today to be compassionate with yourself, because that's where the spiritual warrior's work really is. It's about eliminating our judgment within ourselves. It's about eliminating our coulda, shoulda, wouldas, our victimness, and ground ourselves in that sweet surrender of knowing that there is a higher power that moves and has its being within us, that we are a part of, that we can gather our good from. So our work is really about finding the bandwidth of more compassion in our hearts and releasing our belief systems that get us really in trouble because we think our identity is in our belief systems. It's not. Our identity is in the cosmos. It's the mystery, which until we leave this planet and this vehicle, we don't know what that is. So today, again, with your intention, I invite you to give yourself more compassion, so that you may give that compassion away to others. Thank you. Namaste.